Hello and welcome to Capsule Deployment in the Real World. I am Daniele Pavia. I work as a cloud automation and ops specialist in the R&I department at Ingegneria Informatica, which is one of the biggest IT companies in Italy. So today I'm going to talk a bit about the capsule deployment and what are the challenges, what are the solutions we devised, and what is the actual process of deploying a capsule in your environment. Let's start off by defining what is an IDEA4RC capsule. An IDEA4RC capsule is actually a set of components such as a FHIR database, an OMOP database, the ETL and NLP processes, and other components that are deployed inside a specific environment, which is based on Kubernetes and has most notably Istio as one of its main features. But what does an IDEA4RC capsule actually looks like inside? So as you can see, there's quite a number of components, and the outline is the orange ones are the FHIR related ones, the gray ones are the OMOP related ones, the yellow is actually the capsule environment, so Kubernetes, Istio, the ingress gateway and all of that, and in blue there's the Vantage 6 part, which is used for the federated for the federation of the infrastructures. Now, as this schema might imply, there are several technologies at work here that make for quite a bit of complex microarchitecture to integrate and specifically to deploy. So the main issue we were facing here was that most of the organizations that are interested, that are participating in the project and that are interested in deploying the capsule don't actually have a Kubernetes environment. Well, some do, but most don't. So the first challenge was for us to make it possible to deploy the environment that is required for this capsule to be set up as easily as possible. And the second challenge was to actually make it so that this architecture could be deployed as easily as possible. And what was the answer to those challenges? Well, of course, automation. So what we came up with was a way to automate the provisioning of the environment and the deployment of the capsule with two different technologies. Ansible for the provisioning of the environment and Helm for the provisioning of the capsule itself, which is installed as a package. Well, in this slide, you can see the hardware requirements for deploying the capsule, but you might also notice the fact that we also have requirements for a Kubernetes cluster, because with this split approach, we also took into consideration the fact that an organization might have a Kubernetes cluster available. And that means that if you have one, you can just make sure that you meet these requirements and go straight to the deployment of the capsule. Well, starting off with the VM deployment, so you have a VM and you want to provision the capsule. You start off using the Ansible playbook to provision the environment, as I said. And the first step is also, of course, to install Ansible and configure it, which is quite an easy task, actually. Then you fetch the playbook and you run it, and basically you're done. What has actually happened is that this playbook has deployed micro-Kubernetes, which is a self-contained Kubernetes cluster developed and distributed by Canonical, and that is the reason why we suggest using a Ubuntu machine. And it also has enabled all the stuff that is required to actually run the capsule, so Istio, MetalLB, and all the other things. Then deploying the capsule is also very similar in that you just fetch the Helm chart from our GitHub repo and then you run the dependency build and install command. You wait a few minutes and you're done. And once the capsule has been deployed, we just need to make sure that everything is running properly. So we invoke the Odyssey API to make sure that all the processes are returning an OK. And then we ingest the data and we run an algorithm on the federated infrastructure from the orchestrator. This small graph you can see here is a Kaplan-Meier curve that has been run against our federated infrastructure. So how many capsules do we have in operation right now? We have 6 5 are virtual machine based, so they went through the whole process of deploying everything from scratch. And 1 is Kubernetes based and has been deployed directly on their own Kubernetes cluster. Moving forward, I'm going to demonstrate the deployment of a capsule starting from the Ansible playbook up until the capsule is up and running properly. Okay, we can start by cloning our GitHub repo. I've already done that. So you can see that, you can see that's already there. And the only thing that we are going to need is, of course, being able to connect to the VM that we want to provision. In this case, it will be the VM itself from where we are actually operating Ansible. We're also going to need the IP from which we want to expose our services. So let's get this IP. So yeah, this IP, my public IP, doesn't need to be a public IP, of course. We can just use a private IP, unlike the one I'm leveraging right now. This is our main interface and this is our IP. So let's just put it here. And we're going to copy our command like this. And then we are going to replace this variable with our IP. And then we are, of course, going to say that we're going to connect to this VM with the specific user. Yep. Okay, started. It will now go through the process of doing all the required steps. Let's fast forward a bit. And it's done. Now we should be able to use the kube control command to see that everything is, to check that everything is working properly. So we can just run get pods -a, and yeah, all the system pods are running. Okay, so the next step is actually deploying the capsule. Now, this is the repo for the capsule. I'm going to share all the required links at the end of the presentation. And these are all the components that are actually going to be deployed by the Helm chart. So you can see that there's quite a bit of stuff that's going to be deployed. So first of all, we can go down here, and yeah, this is just the hardware requirements that I've shown previously. Specifically, yeah, the Ubuntu VM for the micro Kubernetes instance. And what we're going to do right now is clone the repo like this. Oh, there's an old version here. I'm gonna remove it and clone it again. Okay, now that we cloned the repo, now you can see that there is this particular step where that is advised to be used after you deploy with the Ansible playbook. This is because there are some minor changes to the command and that are needed after you run the playbook when deploying the capsule. But it's actually pretty generic, so you can check this command and make sure that perhaps that could be something that could be useful in your deployment, even when you're deploying directly on Kubernetes. So again, we're going to take our private IP, and we're going to leverage it for the deployment. So let's copy our command and replace our variable with the IP we're going to use. And yeah, that should be it. And okay, the command went through absolutely fine. Let's check that the deployment process is actually ongoing. And we can run the kube control get pods -a command again. And yeah, you can see all those containers, container creating. We just need to give it a few minutes. Let's fast forward a bit. And yeah, everything is up and running. And you can see that it has taken a whole 5 minutes to deploy everything, and this is on pretty basic hardware, so nothing special under the hood. And yeah, it's been quite a fast process. Luckily, we didn't have any issue, and the only thing that's left to do is check that the database and, well, sorry, the capsule is actually running fine, so we can run the command that is shown previously to interact with the ODC API and see that everything is working properly. So let's get to that in a second. Yeah, here it is. It would only take, yeah, a couple of seconds, and yeah, you can see that everything is working fine. API okay, database okay, Celery okay, and Celery backend okay. That's done. Everything is up and running. So, all in all, to summarize the achievements we reached, we were able to ensure that the organizations are capable of having their own Kubernetes cluster to deploy the capsule in very easily with just one command. We were able to package the whole capsule and make it very easy to deploy. And also upgrading is very, very easy because it only takes one command. Here are a couple of links that are useful, and if you want to get more info on actually go through the process of deploying the capsule. So the playbook, the Helm chart, the Vantage 6 installation scripts, and there's also this gist, which is a recap of all the commands that are actually required to deploy the capsule. Well, thank you for participating in this session, and it's been a pleasure. And if you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions or anything like that, this is my email, and have a pleasant stay.